Adam Gillette. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Vinay Kolhatkar is based in Sydney, Australia. Previously, he was the founding chairman of the Great Energy Alliance Corporation and a chief investment officer at an investment firm with over $4 billion under management. He studied screenwriting at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney, ScreenwritingU in LA, and at the Story Department. He wrote Casting Impressions, a short film produced by King Creatives, and his debut novel, The Frankenstein Candidate, was published by Leadstart Publishing. Shameless plug, buy it in the Atlas Summit bookstore as soon as this session ends. I didn't write that, that's terrible. He is a non-resident fellow at Contraditório, a Portuguese think tank that promotes economic and personal liberty. Ladies and gentlemen, Vinay Kolhatkar.
Hi. The last person over there, you can hear me very well? Great. Okay, if you, at any point you can't, just do that. Thank you for the kind introduction. He even pronounced my name right, but I would forgive him if he didn't. If he did mispronounce my name, sometimes even I do it. The first thing I'm going to cover, I guess, is why does it matter? Why does this whole romanticism in Hollywood, why does it matter? And the reason it matters is that human beings are wired, genetically wired for story the way flight simulators work with pilots. Story teaches human beings how to lead life by way of concretizations rather than abstractions, by way of illustrations. And there is a certain kind of art which is romanticist art, which will invigorate you, which you will make you feel good about yourself, more confident about yourself, as compared to naturalist art, which does the opposite. We'll come back to this theme at the very end, but what is important to note again is that we're genetically wired for story, and then the atypical seems typical. I mean, that's in Information Design Journal 2008, volume 16, number 1, page 47. The abstract says the atypical is absorbed as the typical. And that's quite a profound statement, because every story is about 1 or 2 or 3 human beings. And statistically, that is a very insignificant sample. But the truth that a story contains is absorbed. We are genetically wired to absorb that truth as if it is a universal truth about humankind. And so that's why it is so important. At the end of the 45 minutes, I think you get to ask me some questions. So I'm going to spend some of this time asking you questions. And you're not allowed to answer them by talking, because I won't finish on time. How does that work? They show of hands questions, so you can just show your hands. I'm going to jump into illustrations first up. So we're going to go backwards and forwards between illustrations and abstractions. And we can do this with ease at the end of 45 minutes. So my very first question doesn't relate to this movie, but it's a question about film critics. How many of you, raise your hand, think that film critics don't know what they're talking about? Jesus, I don't need to be here. Half of you already know they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, my next question is, who's seen this movie and remembers the story? Nobody. Oh, that's good. Okay, so I'll tell you briefly what it is about. And I don't tell the story as a story. I tell it in a different way. 7 minutes into this film, we learn what the whole story is about. It's a true story, happened in Massachusetts over 18 years. And this woman, Betty Ann Waters, played by Hilary Swank, she is doing law at the University of Rhode Island, Williams School of Law. And she's with a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and she's like late 30s, 40. And there is only one other mature age student there who asks her, when she sees her in a bar, working in a bar, she says, and so why are you doing law? And she says, Betty Ann Waters says, I want to become a lawyer so I can free my brother. He has been convicted of murder and he's innocent. 3 lines, 3 words. He is innocent. With absolute conviction. She does not say, I think he is innocent. I think he was wrongly convicted. I want to try to get him out. She just says, he's innocent. Very quickly. Like, oh, it's 5 minutes past 4, it's raining, it's sunny, he's innocent. And in the true story, what happened was that Betty Ann Waters had to go through an 18-year battle. Her brother was a felon. He was a petty robber. Betty Ann Waters and Kenny Rogers, the brother, were part of 9 children born to 7 different fathers but the same mother. And the mother neglected them, so the children used to, Betty Ann and Kenny, used to break into homes and rob a little bit, or just break into homes to feel like they're part of a home. And that got Kenny into the habit of breaking into homes. And he simply happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, so he was convicted of murder. So she tries hard with different lawyers and different things, and her husband doesn't believe in her. She then has to go back to high school because she said, I'm the one who's going to do the law degree and free him. But she doesn't have the grades, so she goes back to high school, gets better grades so she can go into law school. At which point, there's a divorce, separation and divorce, so it breaks up her marriage. Eventually, the children leave her. They go and live with their father. So there's a setback after setback after setback. At one point, Kenny, who was trying to commit suicide in jail, he tells her that, how do you know? I may be guilty. Because he sees her wasting her whole life, and he thinks he's never going to be free. He's in there for life without parole. That's the sentence he's got. There's no grounds for appeal. So he doesn't want her to waste her life. So he tries to wean her away, and she says, how dare you say that? You're innocent. And this is a true story. After 16 years, because of DNA evidence, she actually managed to prove that he wasn't at the scene of the crime because his DNA, they have actually kept his blood sample, although they say it has been destroyed, but the records are wrong. She never gives up. And then she spent another 2 years because even though he wasn't at the scene of the crime, they still say, well, he must have been an accomplice. So at the end of 18 years, Kenny was finally freed in 1998. And this is a 2010 movie. Now, what happened in real life, though, was that when Kenny was freed, 6 months afterwards, he met with an accident. And in that, he died. And Tony Goldwyn, the director, makes an extremely smart decision here. He doesn't show that. He ends the movie when Kenny was freed. So it's like this massive struggle. 7 minutes into the film, we know what the film's about. Massive struggle. She wins in the end. You end on a high note. That now is a romanticist story. Not 6 months later, he died anyway, so what was the use of that? No, he just eliminates that. He adapts the true story beautifully. Now I'll give you another example. How many of you read either the novel or seen the movie Disgrace? Nobody. That's good. The novel won the Man Booker Prize in 1999. James Coetzee was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2003. Now let's look at this story. It's about a gentleman named David Lurie, a 52-year-old white Caucasian. He is a professor of literature at Cape Town University. This is not a true story, so the author is a master of the universe here. So he can choose whatever he wants and make the story as interesting as he wants it to be. And this is what he chooses. So David Lurie, we see him in the beginning visiting prostitutes because he's divorced. We don't know why he does it. He just does it. Then he has an affair with a 22-year-old student. It's voluntary. It's consensual. The university finds out, and they threaten to expel him unless he apologizes and agrees to a 6-month suspension. So there's a way out for him. He can save his career. But he decides not to. Just like that, there's no reason given. He just wants to be out. So fine, he invites them to fire him, so they fire him. He goes across the whole of South Africa to the Eastern Cape, where his daughter lives there, and she's a lesbian she lives by herself, and she grows flowers and vegetables in some sort of a little vegetable garden in a small holding. And then one fine day, David Lurie and his daughter are attacked by 3 young African men, dark-skinned. They lock David up in a bathroom. They throw methylated spirits on his face, set him on fire. He manages to save himself, but he can't save his daughter because he's locked up in the bathroom. She's gang raped. She then falls pregnant. Suddenly the focus shifts to her. She says, I'm going to have the baby, because that is Mother Earth's revenge for all the wrongs committed on the black people by the white people 3 generations ago. I have to suffer. That is the way of the earth. Meanwhile, David Lurie is going to try and write a play about Byron, which he fails to write. He then visits an animal welfare clinic, where he insults the host of the clinic. Is an old, aging, married lady who, in David's opinion, is unattractive, because she says, why don't you go back, will you go back to your womanizing days? And he said, well, there's nobody here who can, make me feel like that. And despite insulting her, the next day he has sex with her, casual sex. Then he starts to euthanize unwanted dogs that nobody wants, that have no owners, obviously unwanted dogs that nobody wants. And then in the last scene in the book, this is slightly altered in the movie, he feels bad that these dogs are chopped up before they're put into the incinerator, because nobody wants them. And the entry point of the incinerator is too small to fit some of the big dogs. So he spends a lot of time trying to push those gates wider so the whole of the dog can go in, even though it's dead and nobody really wants the body because they have no owners. And we are supposed to conclude that that act gives his life the dignity he never had, even though he was a professor, a full professor of literature at a university. That's the story for which somebody gets a Nobel Prize in literature. And I've read the book twice, and I don't know if I missed something, but none of the subplot connects with each other. So what's Romanticism? Ayn Rand defined Romanticism, redefined Romanticism, really, because it was called as the primacy of emotion. Ayn Rand said, Romanticism is that faculty of art which acknowledges that human beings have the faculty of volition. But that itself doesn't get us far. I mean, and she does explain that further in her book. So essentially, Romanticism is about free will. And if you want to showcase the ability of human beings to shape reality, what you have to do is to have stories that have a structure, and I'm going to talk a lot about structure. Showcasing the ability to shape reality means you do not have accidents and coincidences. You have conflicts that are resolved at the end. Aristotle said a story is a series of self-contained events where there is a prologue and an inciting incident, and then a series of connected incidents that are caused by human beings and some other human beings opposing those human beings. And at the end, the scene is such at the end that there can be no further story. That's when the story ends. Now that is a romanticist story. I'm going to use Ayn Rand's definition as well of art, which is the selective recreation of reality. She uses the mouthful according to an artist's metaphysical value judgments, but I guess we can use worldview that the artist has. Now, one of the common misconceptions among objectivists is that Romanticism must necessarily espouse objectivist values, and that isn't true. Ethics is not the preserve of art. Ethics and moral judgments are the preserve of ethics. So in art, what you're trying to do is to show human beings pursuing values and achieving them, or just failing to achieve them, but at least having the possibility of achieving them, and not necessarily going after capitalism. For instance, one of the people I was talking to thought, there will be blood. Anyone seen There Will Be Blood? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He thought that There Will Be Blood, because it's about an oil prospector, is a romanticist movie. And I've actually classified that as one of the worst movies ever. Like Citizen Kane. So there is no necessity, like We the Living and Agora, in which Hypatia dies, there's no necessity of having happy endings in Romanticism. It's the issue of being able to shape reality. Now, what we have from a dramatic perspective, though, you must have a main character that has a goal that is improbable but achievable. So just having a sensible goal is not enough from the viewpoint of drama. I mean, let's take, for instance, let's say we have a 13-year-old girl, Bianca. She's a prodigy, let's say, in mathematics. Absolute prodigy, genius, terrific IQ. She lives in Boston, across the road from MIT, and she wants to do a PhD in pure mathematics. MIT is inviting her with a scholarship. Great. There's nothing wrong with having that as an objective. She'll do it because she has the talent for it. But there is no drama here. If you want to make it dramatic, we've got to change some things. We've got to make this Bianca into a Benazir who lives in the Helmand province of Afghanistan, the Taliban-controlled part of Afghanistan. And if she even so much as goes to school, there is a danger that someone might throw acid on her face, kill her mother, those sort of things. Her father is a priest, let's say, and so he's going to oppose her going to school, let alone going to MIT. So mother has to smuggle her out of Afghanistan into Pakistan, and then on the way into a voyage up to Australia, and then off to MIT or something like that. Now you could make a whole movie out of that. But you couldn't make a movie out of the first part, because there is no conflict, there is no drama, there is no improbable but achievable goal. Because if you're going to get inspired, it's got to be improbable. So it's the heroic against the odd pursuit leading to a resolution. So the telling of a story must always have a point to it. At the end of the story, you have to be able to say, what's the point? And that's what you don't get with Disgrace. The second part, that's my photo, by the way. I used to look like that. The second part from the structure, I spoke about an inciting incident. How many of you know what an inciting incident is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Virtually every movie, and certainly every romanticist movie and every romanticist story, must have an inciting incident, a catalyst that is exogenously causes the story to move forward. In Aristotle's opinion, that's when the story starts. But for the inciting incident to make sense, every movie has a prologue, because otherwise it can't make sense. And then is the rest of the movie. So let me give you a few illustrations. Jaws, I'm sure everybody's seen it. I'm not going to have a show of hands. A shark attacks a human being on near a beach. That's the inciting incident. That causes the sheriff to have a goal, exogenously caused. It causes the sheriff to have a goal to go and kill the shark. The whole of the rest of the movie is about him and the shark. The prologue didn't need to last more than a minute and a half, because we all know what a beach looks like. But then you contrast that with, say, Rocky. In Rocky, there's 26 minutes before Rocky Balboa gets the invitation from Apollo Creed. And the reason is we got to understand what Rocky is. He's a small-time boxer, and he works for a loan shark. And you have to understand his whole life to actually make sense why the title shot is so of such importance to him. The extreme example is the King's Speech. I had a debate with that on the screenwriting class where various people thought this was the inciting incident, that was. In my opinion, the inciting incident in the King's Speech is as much as 33 minutes into the film. 33 minutes of backstory. So who's seen the King's Speech? Everybody. So you all know what it is about. For those who haven't seen it, Prince Albert stammers. He's the second son. The eldest son of King George V committed a sin, so he had to abdicate the throne. The sin he committed was he married an American. Oh, God forbid. But she also happened to be a divorcee, which was the bigger sin. So now the stammerer, but he's always stammered, the stammerer has to cure his problem. That's his goal. That's the driver of the whole movie, right? At what point does the penny drop? And it's that 33 minutes into the film, Colin Firth, who plays Prince Albert, actually hears the recording that he's made. The Australian speech therapist he employs, Lionel Logue, played by Geoffrey Rush, he asks him a question, which is, when you talk to yourself, do you stammer? And he says, of course not. And he says, I can cure you. And he makes him read a passage from Hamlet, the to be or not to be part of it. But while he reads, he makes him listen to a symphony at a very loud volume. And so then he refuses to hear the recording until much later in the film, which is 33 minutes into the film. Prince Albert hears the recording, and it's crystal clear. He hasn't stammered at all. He's recited Hamlet without stammering. And that's when the penny drops. That's when he realizes, I can do this. And then the whole of the rest of the movie is about, can he do it? And when he's done a speech without stammering, it's the end. We can't go any further. Sometimes there is dialogue that reveals to you what the whole movie is about. It can happen any time, any part of the movie. So as a screenwriter, you have two weapons, action and dialogue. Nothing else happens in a movie. I mean, if you're a novelist, you can write 2 beautiful pages of how the sunset looks like, and the director will throw it away, because if he's going to use a sunset, they'll just show it. And most probably they'll say, well, listen, it's only day or night. I can't wait for the sunset because I've got the whole crew ready. I'm going to do it. So you have action, you have dialogue, nothing else. But you can have dialogue that is congruous to action, or dialogue that is incongruous to action. And dialogue that is incongruous to action can also reveal character. Dialogue that is congruous to action mostly will reveal what the movie is about. Let me give you a few examples again. Pulp Fiction, pretty much everyone's seen it, right? Oh, half the people have seen it. That's good. In one of the opening scenes of Pulp Fiction, Jules, who's played by Samuel Jackson, and Vincent, played by John Travolta, are in a car, and they're discussing French burgers. And what do they call a burger, the Big Mac in Paris, says Jules. And Vincent says, oh, they call it Le Big Mac. And so they keep talking about burgers. And then suddenly they stop the car, and they pull some guns out of the boot, and they get back into the car. So now we think they're onto something. But are they talking about killing somebody? No. Are they doing that sort of, the usual things that everyone does in spy movies and terrorist movies? No. Are they saying, you take him from the left and I'll go from the right? Are they planning the murder? No. What are they talking about? Foot massages. Marcella's wife is being given a foot massage by Vincent. And then there's this whole discussion about whether or not foot massages have a sexual connotation. She likes foot massages. And then there's this whole danger about, well, do you give a foot massage to the boss's wife? Then they walk into an apartment. And then they have the victim in front of them. They're just jerking him around. They're talking about burgers again, Hawaiian burgers, and then all of a sudden they kill him. So there's action, and the dialogue has got nothing to do with the action. And because the dialogue has got nothing to do with the action, people think it's fantastic dialogue because it reveals character. In that context, Quentin Tarantino has used it beautifully, because if you want to show somebody is a cold-blooded killer, that's the way to do it. Because anybody who's not a cold-blooded killer, who's not professional, who hasn't done it for years, is going to plan the murder and talk about it. These guys don't need to talk about it. As good as it gets, Melvin Udall, played by Jack Nicholson, here's what he does. He's a bad neighbor, he's a misanthrope, and he takes this little dog, who's a pest, belongs to a gay neighbor, and he throws him down the laundry chute. And then the gay neighbor comes out and he says, oh, have you seen my dog? No. But he's such a lovely dog. And then we know what Melvin's character is like. He's lying through his teeth. So that's dialogue incongruous to action. But dialogue congruous to action can happen to completely reveal what a film is about or what the character's goal is about. There was a movie called Doubt, in which Philip Seymour Hoffman played Father Flynn, Amy Adams played Sister James, and Meryl Streep plays Sister Beauvoir. First 5 minutes into the film, theme stated, Father Flynn is giving a sermon, and in the sermon he says, everyone has doubts. Just 3 words, 1 sentence. Everyone has doubts. The whole sermon is about, does everyone have doubts? Do we need to help? Do we need to rely on someone else now and then? And then the whole movie is about, does everyone have doubts? But the interesting thing is, Sister Beauvoir, played by Meryl Streep, is a character that throughout the movie is super confident, has no doubts. And working under her is Amy Adams, Sister James. So she thinks, well, Father Flynn says everyone has doubts, but I see a real-life example here. She doesn't have doubts until the very last scene in the movie. Sorry to give you a spoiler, but the Meryl Streep character breaks down and says, I too have doubts. That pretty much is the end of the movie. Now, that's not a romanticist goal. That's not an objectivist goal. But it is a romanticist movie in the sense that, it has got a proper conclusion, it's got a value system, and it's got an aim, and it's got like conviction. Every frame, every scene in the movie is propelled towards that particular issue. Does everyone have doubts? Miscongeniality. Can you be an FBI detective and feminine at the same time? Every frame, every scene in the movie directed towards that very thing. Sometimes it's a lot later, 66 minutes into the movie, where Terry Malloy, played by Marlon Brando, on the waterfront. In that, Terry Malloy, his brother Charlie, his older brother, tells him to take a dive in a boxing match. But had he won that boxing match, he would have been a contender for a world title. Now instead, he's a worker on a wharf. He gets some money for taking a dive, and he's in the back of the car, and he's saying, you was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked after me. I could have had class. I could have been something, Charlie. I could have been a contender. That's what it is about. He is continually feeling that he's given up on something big, but that movie is about redemption, because he finds another cause, which is standing up to the unions, because his title shot is long since gone. Sort of the entire picture of the movie in one piece of dialogue. Something similar happens in this movie as well. That happens at the climax. In The Dark Knight 2008 is not like any other superhero movie. It's quite different. There is an alliance between the Commissioner Loeb, Batman, and the District Attorney Harvey Dent against crime in Gotham City. And they're trying their best to reduce the crime, but crime is exploding. And then comes the Joker, and the Joker represents nihilism, pure nihilism. That's difficult because he doesn't care about money. Remember, there's a scene where there's this pile of money and he burns his half. He says, I don't care about money. Gotham City needs a classier kind of criminal and I'm going to give it to them. That's what he says. So he sets up this moral experiment on the high seas in which there are two ferries that cross each other. And each of the ferries is told there's a bomb on the other ferry that you can detonate. But if you don't detonate it, they might trigger the bomb in which you will all die. And by midnight, if neither of you pull the trigger, then both ferries go up. So the only way to save yourself is to kill everybody else on the other ferry. Somehow, despite the temptation, somebody just grabbed the trigger and a convicted criminal grabs it off him. So somehow they get past that to midnight and both the ferries don't blow up. So it's like a classic prisoner's dilemma, but it isn't explained as a prisoner's dilemma by the Joker. When the Joker explains it, he says, midnight, both ships are going to blow up. But it doesn't happen. One of the other things he sets up is he sets up the DA. Now the DA, Harvey Dent, is not an outlaw. He works within the system. He goes after the mafia. So he's held as virtually like an abstraction. He's like a piece of art. He's the emotional fuel for Gotham City. Because if he was corrupted at any point, just like every other DA has been, then it's over. So he's the inspiration more than Batman, because Batman's already a little bit of an outlaw. So he's got to be protected. So he sets it up where either you can rescue Harvey Dent or his fiancée, who's also in love with Bruce Wayne, who's Batman's alter ego. And the net result is Batman decides to save Harvey Dent because he's the abstraction. He's the fuel. Rightly so, he loses the love of his life. And then there's a piece of dialogue after the climax between Batman and the Joker, in which the Joker actually wins. And this is what happens. There's a fist fight which Batman wins. Joker's falling down. Batman does his usual bat hook, pulls him up. The Joker's hanging in there. You just couldn't let me go, could you? And Batman's sort of looking at him and he's going, you can't kill me out of some misplaced sense of self-righteousness. And I won't kill you because you are too much fun. We're going to do this forever. You'll be in a padded cell forever. We'll share it. At the rate at which the city's inhabitants are losing their minds, they'll need to double up. This city just showed you that it's full of people ready to believe in good, till their spirit breaks completely, till they realize what I have done with the best of them. You didn't think that I would risk losing the battle for Gotham's soul in a fistfight with you? You must have an ace in the hole. Mine's Harvey. What have you done? I took Gotham's White Knight and I brought him down to our level. It wasn't hard, as you know. Madness is like gravity. All you need is a little push and cut. What the Joker has done is turned Harvey Dent, the DA, into a killer, because he's lost it. He's lost his fiancée. He's lost everything. And he knows that's the point at which Gotham City loses. But in the epilogue, the Batman turns things around again, because he takes the blame for what happened. He takes the blame for the DA's murders, and as a result, we're back to square one. He saves the day. So it's very, very interesting. Then this one, you can have, I don't know, Network 1976. Anyone seen? Lots of people seen it. He's a newscaster who gets fired. Now, I called it imperfect romanticism because the dialogue reveals his inner state of mind, but at the end there is some sort of a tongue-in-cheek ending to it, which is why I called it imperfect. Not because the goals are not romanticists. Howard Beale is the newscaster who got fired, and he doesn't fully understand the world, but it's values that he's going for. He says, we all know things are bad. They're worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything is going crazy. So we sit at home and we stop going out, and the world we live in gets smaller and smaller and smaller until we say, just leave us alone with our television and steel-belted radials and hair dryers, and we won't say anything. Just leave me alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to write to your congressman, because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know how to fix the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street, and all I know is first you've got to get mad. And when you're mad enough, go to the window, open it, stick your head out and yell. I want you to yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm a human being. God damn it, my life has value. You can't change things unless you get mad. So first, you've got to get mad. That doesn't sound like a completely confused guy. And there's Diane Christensen going, how many stations does this go live to? 67. Does this go to Louisville and Atlanta? Are they yelling in Atlanta, Herb? So there's all these people driving towards their objective, and in the end there's just a satirical ending. That's why it's imperfect. But he's not espousing capitalism, he's anti-corporate. Howard Beale is anti-corporate. I'm going to skip this bit. Again, it's the ending. It's based on Hypatia, the real story of Hypatia. But in the ending, the real Hypatia was skinned alive, and they've altered the ending slightly. Again, it's like Tony Goldwyn's decision. They take a true story. In Romanticism, you try to improve it. We've spoken about this one already. We've spoken about Disgrace. No Country for Old Men. Anyone seen it? Okay. It's a story about nothing really. Three guys, two out of those three guys are never on screen together. And this is what Roger Ebert calls, it's a study of a contemplation of an evil man. And that clearly is not Romanticism. So if we look at despair and unresolved conflicts at the end, accidents and coincidences, gray versus gray, meandering storyline, that's naturalism. So the question you've got to ask is, did I feel invigorated at the end? Was there a clash of ethics, a purposeful, congruous action? Issues were resolved and a permanent change effected? Then that's Romanticism. Every story can be expressed, every good story can be expressed in one line. This is a novel I wrote in which that's the one line. Sorry about the sidebar, just a plug. Books are $10 today. They're $20 on Amazon, but $10 today if you want to buy them. Sign them for you as well. The full article is on that, tsd.in, Romanticism. Some more examples of Romanticism. The Illusionist has got one of the most fantastic things in Romanticism is in art, if you can achieve that, where every scene is a progression of previous scenes, but at the very end there is a climax that is unexpected. But with the benefit of hindsight, it isn't unexpected. That's hard to achieve. That's what The Illusionist achieves. Bell is running in the theaters now, and these are the bad movies. The Great Gatsby, There Will Be Blood, Hurt Locker, Citizen Kane. Critics have loved them, but they're just meandering stories that contemplate evil people. Hurt Locker doesn't even contemplate evil people. It's like a documentary. I was going to briefly cover Aristotle. Aristotle's prescriptions are highly romanticist, and every screenwriting school teaches Aristotle's prescriptions, but then all these bad movies get made. And there is a reason for that paradox, which I don't have time to go into. There's a list of movies that I've got on the article as well. The cognitive science we've already covered, which is that story morals are absorbed and integrated. There's something called an absolute sleeper effect as well, which is once you absorb the story morals, they grow on you, within you, because you're looking at the world with a different kind of view. That's called an absolute sleeper effect. And atypical stories are assumed to be typical. Television I'll only cover if someone asks me a question. And the last point I wanted to make was screen stories are highly ubiquitous. The reach of screen stories is far more than novels, and that is why it's so important to understand movies. The Romanticism survives because of box office, Aristotle, and then there's a natural fan base. We've got a Facebook page on Romanticism Watch if anyone wants to join, and if you have any questions.
Thank you for a fascinating talk. Could you explain the Aristotle Paradox?
Sure. Screenwriting as literature is relatively new to be regarded as literature. So what happens is they don't have a pedigree that literature had. So every screenwriting school, or almost every screenwriting school, attaches itself to the Aristotle pedigree. So they say poetics had, and then it pretty much did, had everything that we're teaching you anyway. And so that gives them sort of not so much snob value, although Aristotle is used as snob value sometimes, but Aristotle's prescriptions are highly romanticist. If you actually follow those prescriptions, movies like the Citizen Kane, Hurt Locker, Disgrace should never be made, let alone win awards. And one of the things screenwriting teachers do is when something like American Beauty is made, which is a very naturalist film, and it gets awards, they get caught, because the film medium educators are saying, I'm going to teach you how to make it in Hollywood. Now there is a movie that doesn't follow prescriptions that has made it in Hollywood and won Oscars or BAFTAs, so they readjust it, and that's the sort of Aristotle paradox. There's a bit of there's snob value in the bureaucrats who give you money. I mean, I was in a meeting once when this guy just said, Scorsese. I didn't understand what he's trying to say. I mean, I sort of like Shutter Island by Scorsese, and I don't like Departed and some other movies, but that Scorsese means he's got snob value. And if you want to get funding, you got to pretend to like Scorsese, so you can also say Scorsese without there being any objective sort of criteria. So I think next time I'm going to do that. When he says Scorsese, I'll say, yeah, but Aristotle. Try going.
There's been rare times where I'll watch a movie and I'm trapped in it because it's so bad. I keep thinking, can it get any worse than it does right through the ending? One movie I saw, though, Titanic, seemed very good right up to the end. Is it just my opinion that someone lost it on that last scene where she throws Jewel over the boat, or is that considered romanticism?
Sorry, remind me of the last scene again. I'm trying to remember it myself.
The old woman who's the whole story. She's before she dies, she goes out to the stern.
Yep.
She's got the jewel that everyone's hoping to find in the safe, and she hurls it out off the ship.
Yeah.
And then she dies.
I understand. Yeah. I don't quite remember the significance of that, and it's not like every movie is altogether romanticist or altogether naturalist. Some are altogether naturalist. A lot of them are sort of partially or mostly romanticist. So it could be one of those, but I frankly I haven't seen that movie since about 10 or 12 years, so I don't remember. I remember the scene, but I can't put the significance to it.
I wish I did not remember the last scene.
Right, yeah. It could well be something that spoils the whole story. It's possible. I mean, this is the same guy who made Avatar, so James Cameron. Hi.
Thanks for a great talk. I really enjoyed it. What do you think of the better movies of M. Night Shyamalan, like The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs?
Okay. Can't answer that question because I haven't seen them. The list of 25, and I had actually 27 romanticism movies that I put up, mostly from the 21st century, are from only the ones that I have seen. So actually, I guess I could say romanticism is alive and kicking, even though Ayn Rand wrote the obituary of romanticism in 1965. So I'm sorry, I can't comment on Night Shyamalan because I haven't seen it.
Well, a good romantic story, the conflict is resolved at the end of the story.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And now you mentioned redemption, and I'm curious if movies of redemption, either there is redemption or there isn't, are these examples, or does it fit into the romantic idea of a story? And I'm thinking specifically of, well, for example, Shane. Everybody's seen Shane. At the end, he rides off unredeemed if the point of the story was that he was going to try to break free from being a gunfighter.
Redemption, I think, absolutely fits into romanticism because we have to have reversal of fortune and change. And I think in some of Ayn Rand's novels you don't see it enough. And that's one place where Aristotle and Ayn Rand differ from each other in terms of the emphasis on redemption or change of fortune that Aristotle puts on it. And in general, screenwriting theory itself puts a high emphasis on redemption simply because it can be much more cathartic. On the waterfront, the Marlon Brando character, Terry Malloy, has tremendous amount of redemption. And you feel for him so much that I remember when he does the last scene, he walks the plank, and I was in tears. So, yeah, redemption is an absolute positive value.
Okay.
And it is real value in human life. I mean, some people go wrong, and you've got to show how they can get right again. Which is something you don't find so much in the sort of Rand novels. You find it occasionally, but...
Yeah, well, it can be a conflict resolution, I guess. to fit the romantic notion?
Conflict resolution has to be there. Redemption doesn't have to be there. I mean, you could have a character like in the movie Gandhi. He is the same, but he changes the world around him. So redemption is not a necessity, but it's a positive thing. Conflict resolution is an absolute necessity. I mean, I'll give you an example. In Ides of March, starring George Clooney, the end scene is a decision point for a person who is going to decide whether he realizes George Clooney as a presidential candidate is corrupt. Right? He's got to decide whether he's going to join this corrupt guy or expose him. But if he exposes him, it entraps the guy who's going to expose him. He's trying to decide, and that's where the movie ends. I mean, I compare that to writing a mystery novel, which is very engrossing. It's got four, let's say, viable suspects, right? You come right up to the end and you don't know which one it is going to be. And all of a sudden the writer says, the end, because you know what? The detective never worked it out. I mean, that's cheating the audience. That's No Country for Old Men. The sheriff just gives up. He goes to his uncle and says, I'm overmatched. That's not a movie. That's not a story. That's lazy writing. The conflict's got to be resolved. You set up a conflict. Where anyone can write a mystery story which is so confusing and so engrossing that at the end you just say, oh, sorry, they never solved it.
Can you put up your list of the 25?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Like I said, you may not necessarily... Oh, what happened here? Just 1 second, I'll go from the beginning. So, On the Waterfront's an old movie, Dark Knight's 2008, Agora's 2009, magnificent movie. Now, Agora does end in Hypatia's death. It's based on a true story. But Linda Cowgill, one of the screenwriting teachers, says, your protagonist should be so committed to a goal that they are not just willing to fight for it, they're willing to die for it. Hypatia is given that choice, to convert to Christianity and give up her scientific pursuit, and she chooses not to, knowing fully well that she's going to die. There's a dialogue which says, you don't question what you believe in. You cannot. I must. Counterfeiters is 2007, German movie. Lives of Others also 2006, Austrian movie. I'm sure people know Dead Poets Society, Life is Good. Dallas Buyers was only 2012, very, very driven. Network was the old, Silver Linings Playbooks 2 years ago. Hotel Rwanda is about 8 years ago. And then I have The Illusionist has the masterful climax where it's unexpected, but with the benefit of hindsight, you realize what it is. You realize it is logical. That's hard to achieve. Sound of Music, Strictly Ballroom, most people know that. And then this is now what I didn't write here was King's Speech and The Help. And you might come up with a different list because this is simply from what I've seen. The Naturalism, Wrestler, Dawn's Party, Reader, Revolution, Crash and Contagion you may have seen, Babel. And then these are all the bad ones. The Iron Lady is actually based on a great story. A baker's daughter rises to being Prime Minister of England, right? The reason it's a bad story, they start with Margaret Thatcher, 80-something, suffering dementia, and a series of flashbacks. If it told the story linearly, from the age of 15 or 25, Maggie rises up and finish it on a high note when she becomes a prime minister, that would have been a great story. They ruined it. Today, some of the bad ones. Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, the subplot of the rape and vengeance is completely unrelated to the main plot. There are a few other things wrong with it as well. There Will Be Blood is just a study of bad. And in Revolutionary Road, there's Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Perpetually are talking about going to Paris because that'll solve all their problems, and they never go to Paris till the end of the movie. Sorry, you got a
They're
question?
They're always have Paris.
Yeah.
It's interesting seeing both of these lists. Out of the 50 movies, only one of them would fairly be characterized as comedy. And I'm wondering whether comedy as a genre is just outside or orthogonal to the categories of romanticism and naturalism, or whether there's a way to fold it into those categories.
I think comedies generally, especially romantic comedies, rom-coms are generally romanticist, as are all the superhero movies and the sort of Harry Potters and the Star Wars. I didn't include them because they're kind of obviously romanticist, number one. And number two, I mean, Rand talks about low-level and high-level romanticism, if you recall. They're not necessarily low-level, but they're not necessarily the highest level. That's the only reason. Yeah.
No, I just noticed the absence,
Yeah,
and then I'm going to
yeah.
leave with one more thought. If we're going to talk about television at all, I have to ask you one question.
Yeah.
And the word is 24.
24 is highly romanticist. The problem with the new kind of television, the high drama, is that a story is finished when it's finished. And television, sometimes you've got like 13 episodes times 6 seasons, 78 episodes before the story really finishes, before you can pronounce final judgment. So those television drama series are epics. So you can't, Aristotle said epics are not quite of the same level as the regular contained story. Nevertheless, House of Cards is largely romanticist. It's a gray versus gray, but it's people going after values and achieving them. Same with Breaking Bad.
I would say, as a fan of Dark Knight, and I'm a big fan of No Country for Old Men, I don't think the conflict is particularly resolved in either, but they're still excellent films. In Dark Knight, the Joker's not dead, he's captured, but he's not dead. And in comics, even when you're dead, you come back and cause trouble, and he's merely captured. And, Batman's on the run. He's a vigilante. It ends with the, entire absence of everything being resolved and living happily ever after. And there will be No Country for Old Men does resolve some conflicts in that the main guy we're following, we get kind of a moral fable that he shouldn't have been caught up in this kind of stuff, and he pays the price for it as a result. I know the criminal's still on the run, but we get more resolution, I almost think, in No Country for Old Men than we do in Dark Knight.
Okay. My answer to that is, in the Dark Knight, Batman is on the run, and you might call it not a happy ending. But like I said, Harvey Dent is the abstraction. He's the emotional fuel. He's the piece of art for Gotham City. And Batman takes a voluntary decision to take the blame. I think that was a masterpiece, to be honest. In No Country for Old Men, we don't know who the main protagonist is. There's Llewellyn Moss, who's the thief, ex-Vietnam vet. There's the psychopathic killer, and then there's the sheriff. The killer is after the thief, the sheriff's after the killer. Right? The way the movie ends is the killer gets away, and the sheriff says, I'm overmatched. Just like that. So he just gives up. The issue isn't a happy ending. The sheriff simply gives up. He's mostly not on screen. I mean, this is the way he looks. You look at him. Yeah. Look at the face. He's given up. Look at conviction. Look at Agora. Big face, small town. Angry face, big face. Now, let's look at Disgrace. John Malkovich is small, the earth is big. Conviction, absolute conviction. So it's about how big is the human being in the movie, and sometimes the posters reveal that. So in No Country for Old Men is literally a study of evil men, of one evil man. And that's why all the critics have praised it. They have used those very words. I mean, Roger Ebert says it's a study of a completely evil man, a great study of a completely evil man. And that, for me, that's not a story. A character study is not a story. Any other questions?
I've got one.
Yeah.
What did you think of Casablanca? I saw that recently again, and I thought it sounds like it's a romantic movie because there's a resolution at the end, and it's a conflict of values in that.
Yeah, Casablanca has good conflict of values. It has good sort of momentum in terms of the story being propelled by individuals taking actions, and it has a good resolution. Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't put it in the 25 simply because you can have 35 or 45 in it. Yeah, I forgot. Sorry. Yeah, Casablanca is good. Anything else? Yeah.
I'd just like to say that Star Trek has perfect resolutions, conflict, and happy endings in almost every episode.
Most sci-fi fantasies do, and I think it was a Randian sentiment when she said the highest level of romanticism is of this earth and of these people. See, that's why she wrote Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead. There was no sci-fi, there were no superheroes, it was, people like you and me. And even in The Dark Knight, the Batman actually has no superpowers. He's not a true superhero. So I just selected those movies in which the Star Trek and all are romanticists, undeniably, but they do rely on something else, which is fantasy and sci-fi. So I picked what I thought was kind of the highest level romanticism of this earth and of these people like you and me, showing a lot of courage and integrity, like On the Waterfront.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Agora, probably, in terms of visual spectacular, even though it hasn't got a great ending. Fantastic story. Also in what is currently playing in the theaters, Beale, I loved it a lot, very cathartic. I was crying from halfway through. It's hard. If you ask me tomorrow, I might give you a different response, but Agora is always in the top 3. Any other questions? Oh, well, thank you. You've been a great audience.